Why, hello there. What's up, everybody? It's Wes, Hank, and Andy back for, chapter
18.
18. I was going to say 19. I don't know why
Man.
I made that mistake earlier today. Chapter 18 of The Mandalorian. It is The Mines of Mandalore,
Crazy.
not The Mines of Moria.
Wrong franchise.
How's everybody doing?
Good.
Amazing. I'm stoked to talk about this episode today. I'm
Sure.
over the moon. This is when I say like I'm expecting too much of the other shows. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I want.
They
from my Star Wars.
over-delivered.
Yeah, I like it when they over deliver.
And this
How
is
do you
only
one
two
up Luke
episodes in,
Skywalker?
right?
Well,
Sorry, that wasn't working for me. I had to
That's all.
switch up headsets here. That was just driving my ears nuts. Sorry about that. Yeah, so...
no, you're okay.
So the question is, how do you one up Luke Skywalker?
How do you? Okay, well,
It's coming.
there's a couple of
No
ways
spoilers.
you can do that. Wow.
Yeah.
Before we get into our sort of initial, what did you think about it? Let me get this set up here so we can have a see. There we are.
Perfect.
There we are. I like to have a little splash page
Mm-hmm.
just to sort of set the tone for where we're going. Guys, if you were with us this afternoon on the live stream, thank you very much for tuning in as we continue to double drop these Sundays with both The Bad Batch and The Mandalorian. If you haven't, go check out the YouTube channel. We do have another review series there. It's called The Fan Batch, where we review every new episode of Star Wars The Bad Batch. Catch us in the replay. We want to hear all your comments and questions about those episodes as we do them. It's kind of why we do them as a live stream, so we can all hang out together and sort of explore this thing as one big weird Star Wars family.
Community.
No, dude, we're a family. That's there's no question about it right now. We're a family.
All right.
Guys, The Mines of Mandalore.
Man.
What did you think?
Commune with your family. Wow. I did not expect it to go this big, this quick.
Sure.
I thought for sure there'd be a couple more, let's say droid adventures in based on where we left IG-11 last episode.
Oh, okay.
Side quests.
Side quests.
The game just started and you went right to the end of the game.
So I'm not the only one who thought that. I'm like, wow, we just spent the entire what I thought was going to be the entire season. We did it in one episode.
Yeah,
Well,
basically.
two, technically.
So that means
Well-
that just whatever's happening is bigger than just this. Whatever's about to happen is bigger than just, okay, we're on Mandalore. Like, which is, and for me, this is like, it's that untapped stuff. Like, Clone Wars did it for the clones. And I got to admit that beyond just cool factor, Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith didn't give me that I don't know, that yearning for clone, like to turn my attention to them, to really care about them and stuff like that. It was all
Okay.
like, it was like video games and novels and things that helped flesh those guys out for me. So when Clone Wars hit, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what. So
It changed them from what the Empire is currently perceiving them as
yeah.
to endearing characters to us.
And so with Mandalore, we've only had little
Yeah.
snippets of that. We got like one or two characters that are representative of Mandalore. We have a little bit of the history. We've got maybe 6 Clone Wars episodes, maybe 4 Rebels episodes. Although Sabine is Mandalorian, she's almost on a different arc. Although it comes back around, so we're plumbing stuff like Star Wars deep lore. Remember, like we're always talking about how 1/3 of the galaxy is the independent systems headed by the Mandalorians.
Yeah, that's right.
When I was a kid, we didn't know anything about Mandalorians, but it was inferred to us, at least that's the way I remember thinking, that they were intrinsic to the Clone Wars. I literally thought we were going to get like a million Boba Fett's fighting, Jedi and stuff. And in
Not
a way,
gonna lie, I felt that way too.
super close to that. I mean, I'm rambling.
With that whole Death Watch thing. Sure, we did.
This episode was amazing.
did.
In short,
I said earlier this week as we were chatting outside of the show, I said, wow, compared to last week, Bo-Katan flipped faster than a flapjack in Quebec on Shrove Tuesday.
Nice. That's a great reference.
I will say, though, it's not just 2 episodes that's got us here. I would say even 4.5, because I count those couple in the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, sure.
Because that's where she lays down, like, you got to go get cleansed of your transgressions.
That is fair. That is fair. Well, listen, before we get into the breakdown, it's about time that we open up the cage and let him out for another edition of Bad Star Wars Jokes.
A couple times in one day, he's going to get a big head.
Seriously. Guys, did you know that prior to meeting Han Solo, that Chewbacca was a professional baseball player?
I did not know that.
Yeah, but he got sent back down to the minors for making too many Wookiee mistakes.
That's hilarious.
Making Wookiee mistakes. He might rip your arms
That's
off.
right.
That's a Wookiee mistake.
You're doing just fine, Chewbacca.
I have a bad Star Wars joke that I made up myself.
Oh, wait, an original.
An original.
I am so down for this.
What do Hank Solo's FANdalorian sweatshirt and an undercooked steak have in common?
What does Hank Solo's FANdalorian sweatshirt and an undercooked steak have in common?
I know what it is. They're both rare.
They're both rare, baby.
Nice.
I love it. Yeah, Disney and their DMCA takedown. What do you know?
A couple comments coming in here from Eric.
Eric's joining us tonight on Facebook, a regular viewer of the show and our patron. Mandalorians have a whole load of lore in the Old Republic era too. That they do.
Yeah,
we are going to just scratch the surface of that when we actually get to the mines, because there's a reference to a historical figure that may or may not have their roots rooted in Legends lore. Follow-up comment: no more big league Chewie. I don't want to. I mean,
sir.
I don't want to put that in the corner of my mouth and try and chew that. Be kind of tough and hairy.
It's very witty.
Yeah. Man, I feel like our expectations were kind of subverted this episode. Like you say, you thought she was going to take a lot, or he was going to take a lot longer to get to where he's going, and really didn't. You just kind of okay, we're going, and off we went.
Yeah, found a substitute on his quest, and I do think they're going to circle back though at some point.
Be forewarned, we're going to spend a lot of time on the cyborg character this week, because that has got me the most. Love seeing the mythosaur, but I think everybody was kind of, like, what is going on here? Yeah.
What parts is he made of?
So I do want to spend some time on that, because I found that to be the more I put into it, the more thought, and I have some thoughts about this, really makes for like a grim story around this character, which probably will never ever be seen again, but still,
never know.
It's kind of what we do here. All right, guys, let's get on to it with this week's episode. It is Chapter 18, The Mines of Mandalore. Its original air date was on Wednesday, March 8th, 2023. This one, like every one of them so far, written by Jon Favreau. It's directed by Rachel Morrison. Now, Rachel Morrison has primarily worked as a cinematographer. She was the director of photography on the 2018 Black Panther film. Now, her work on 2017's Mudbound got her the first nomination for Best Cinematography for a Woman. So congratulations for her on getting the nomination. Too bad she didn't get the award.
Got a foot in the door. That's
on another
first
note.
Step.
As on the side to that, if Brendan Fraser takes the Best Actor award for The Whale, he will be the first Canadian to do so.
Really?
And although he was born in Indiana, he identifies publicly as a Canadian and holds dual citizenship. There you go. A little Brendan Fraser dip for you.
Nice.
All right. Our advertised runtime this week was 45 minutes. But of course, if you strip out the titles and the end credits, we come in at a much more trim 38 minutes and 7 seconds. Our episode synopsis this week reads: The Mandalorian and Grogu explore the ruins of a destroyed planet. What do we got Eric saying here? Eric got another comment for us. One important beat that got drawn out for a long 40 minutes as he abandoned his friend droid. A bit of a weaker episode. Wow.
Differing opinions.
Agree to disagree on that one. I didn't find it weak. I did find it.
It
Talk
didn't
about it now.
It didn't lose me. It
Didn't lose me either. I think if anything that stalled for me was the tracing Din Djarin steps a second time with Bo-Katan exactly the same way that we did with Din Djarin, even though the expository dialogue, by the way, next to no dialogue in this episode. Maybe that could have been handled a little bit differently, but again, when there's really only one path to walk, what do you do?
This is the way.
This is the way.
It's kind of like we played the same level with two different characters, and one was way better.
Very interesting analogy. I like that.
And one was way better with their weapon than the other one.
One came back leveled up. You go through it when you're like a level 1 character, then you come back when you're a level 10, and
I felt like it was like Cal Kestis reconnecting to the Force. She just needed to pick up that sword and remember what she already knew.
Yeah.
Fantastic scene, by the way. Guys, if you've been following the show for any amount of time, you know the style that we like to use. And I mean, I can talk Star Wars all day, every day. Some might say I'm a little long-winded.
No.
No.
I'm attempting to curb my writing style this week. So if things seem a little bit different, it's because we're trying something else out. Not because we're gonna skip on anything. I just want to change the format a little bit to see if this is more conversational. Let's call it that.
Fair enough.
All right. So let's get into oh my gosh, where am I at here? Did I go too far? I did go too far. Here we go.
Yeah.
Let's get into the breakdown. Okay, so the episode opens on Tatooine, and guess what, everybody? It's Bunta Eve. There's a speeder race through the streets of Mos Eisley, and we pick up with Pelimato running a grift on an unsuspecting Rodian over some concocted speeder repairs. Of course, all the familiar faces are there. There's R5-D4, the pit droids, and her BD droid.
Treadwell in the background.
There is a Treadwell in the background.
Is it cooking anything this time? Because we know he's been used as a barbecue spit.
That's true. The Treadwell, yeah.
Lauren had a great thought about this.
Yeah.
Do we think Boba brought the Bunta race back? Or has it been going on the whole time?
You know what? I'm going to suggest that it's been there the whole time. We were just only ever privy to it on Mos Espa.
You think during the Empire that would be a thing?
On some ways, I do. I mean, look at Obi-Wan in A New Hope when he talks about how remote Tatooine really is, and that the Empire doesn't really have that big of a presence there. Not until the droids show up, anyway.
I guess that's true. They're pretty
off the beaten path.
And last episode, really, like with the White Protocol droid, kind of trumping up Navarro.
Yeah,
we don't really get any window into the tourist trappings of Tatooine.
No, we really don't.
Like
tourist trappings. That's an interesting one.
There's got to be events and celebrations and whatnot to draw people in, right?
That Rodian is dressed to the T's.
So I was going to say there is a visual cue here that suggests that it's not just Navarro that's prospering.
Yeah,
I mean,
other spots are reaping the benefits as well.
Yeah,
that's kind of why I was like this Bunta stuff. Like we haven't spoken of it since Phantom Menace, so it feels kind of fresh. Like it's probably just a nod. Anybody look up Bunta?
I did. I've got a slide for it.
Nice, wicked.
What do you guys think about the grift that she's running?
I kind of got caught off guard by this. I didn't think she would dip that low.
It makes me think that's been her the whole time. We've just never been privy to it.
I don't even find it that low. I mean, she's trying to survive in a crazy,
She's the reverse Scotty, Scotty would say, he would tell the captain that's going to take 2 months when really it only takes, a week. Right.
But that buys you 2 months.
Yeah. In this case, though, what does she say? It's 20 minutes of work, but it's good. She tells him it's going to take 2 months.
Yeah.
2 months.
2,000% increase or something. Yeah. She's every auto mechanic you've ever met.
Ever.
But the thing is,
ever.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, and she knows, like, we get that from her during the that card game with the Dr. Feeler or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Where she, probably overstates the amount that the call was.
That's true.
I got that impression it might have been $10, and she's like, it's 500, and that's what he throws down. So
we see that Peli has maintained her good term relationship with the Jawas to the tune that she's cut them in They're the ones actually performing the work.
Yeah. Well, is one of them one that she's dating?
So that's an interesting question. I kind of thought about that. Yeah.
Previously, maybe.
And did you see they had like Bunta Mardi Gras kind of like streamers around their necks? They were colorful streamers.
They were all dressed for the
So it's definitely like a celebration.
Festival.
Paint those parts, make them look different.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course she complains that she's got to work on Bunta Eve, which I thought was hilarious. All right. Well, our well-dressed Rodian, that's Dawn Dinninger. And you may not recognize her face, but you've definitely seen her work, as she has played virtually every adult Rodian in live-action Star Wars on Disney Plus.
Nice.
Including the mom on the transport when Din Djarin is using public transport, as well as the Rodian prisoner in the book of Boba Fett. Yeah.
That one didn't fare too well, though.
No, they didn't. And this is a really cool one. This is actually this is a bit of a feel-good story. At least 2 of the 3 Jawas are a mother and daughter acting team from California. They basically got called up, had no idea what they were auditioning for, and then because it was a Star Wars project, they've since gone on to appear multiple times. It's Leilani Shu and her daughter Ariel Shu.
Nice.
Yeah. Leilani, though, the mom, has actually also played Tika. Now, Tika is the Jawa that sold Luke's T-16 model to Obi-Wan.
Actually got an action figure.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Bunta Eve. Most of us, our casual fans, will probably just associate it with the
Phantom Menace race.
The pod race, yeah. Now, that's the Bunta Eve Classic. However, the Bunta Eve itself is a holiday celebrated on Tatooine. And now this is where it gets kind of weird, because it celebrates the Hutt. Now, Tatooine has traditionally been a Hutt-controlled world right up until Boba Fett kind of came in and took over.
No. Well, I guess technically, yeah, because what's his face?
Bib Fortuna.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Who sat on the throne in the interim.
Yeah, until they came to say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So this Hutt, whose name, believe it or not, is, now I'm going to mess this up. Bunta Hestilik Shadru.
There you go.
So the Hutt, Bunta Hedrick Hestilik Shadru, is celebrated for their ascension to godhood in whatever religion the Hutts are celebrating. Anyway,
slugs learn to fly.
It goes on to say that whatever actually happened to this Hutt was lost to legend, but people still celebrate it anyway, and it is typically associated with fireworks, pod racing, and gambling.
And if you listen to Pelly, there's also a little bit of glug glug in there too.
Oh, that's Tuesday. I mean, that's any day.
Is that a canon entry?
That is a canon entry. Yes, it is.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So,
and did you check out the legend stuff? It's like
I did not.
So,
I did not go back.
It's a planet in Hutt space, and it's got a big junk ring around it where they do a lot of salvaging and stuff. But the coolest thing is that the first time it was ever referenced is in the Droids animated series.
Ooh.
And they actually go to the
believe you were. Yeah, I believe that is true. Now that you say that, was that in the first arc with the racing?
Yeah,
it was. Yeah.
Nice.
I'm gonna go back and rewatch that.
Yeah.
Okay, so next up, Mando arrives in his modified N1 Starfighter. He tells Pelly that he's there on business, and he's looking for a replacement IG memory circuit so that he can fix IG-11. Pelly talks to her Jawa friends, who tell her not even they can get one. So then Pelly promptly tries to sell R5-D4. Mando tells her he has no use for an astromech droid because he's going to Mandalore and he needs a droid that is rated for spelunking. But Pelly makes some overtures about how good R5 is, and she offers to sell him at the Bunta Eve discounted rate of half off, along with reinstalling the N1's droid socket, and she'll chuck in a free oil bath. This scene happens so quickly. They move at breakneck pace.
They really do. It's like land droid go.
Yeah. A few things going on in this one. What is Pelly make some overture? What are the Hutts back? Are you taking out Boba Fett? Are you taking out Boba Fett?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What?
No.
We're friends. Don't you remember? Like,
He's still a Mando.
I mean, he's still a bounty hunter.
That's true. That's true. Pelly utters the line when Grogu, because she's like, "Where's my guy?" And then he kind of
pops
stands up and does this flip. And what does she say? "Who taught you to leap like a lerman?" Of course, the lermans were introduced to us back in the Clone Wars as a lemur-like species. What does she say? "Sorry, pal, no chance cubes. They can't get the parts."
Nice.
And then this, man, this part really burns me now. And I don't want to spend too much time, but this is like, this is for people who I don't want to say obsess. For people who scrutinize Star Wars the same way that we do, this will drive you insane. This will drive you like, it just. Pelly makes an overture about how he should be, flying starfighters across the galaxy fighting tyranny. She makes a point to say that R5D4 is as good as the day that it came back from serving in the rebellion.
Yeah.
Casual fans, sure, okay. Is she just telling him? Is she just feeding him a line? I had to dig down on this, and no, I couldn't make this up if I tried to. Yes, R5D4 actually made it into the rebellion, having been inspired by R2D2 and their time together in the Sandcrawler. It's actually mentioned in the 2015 canon reference book, Ultimate Star Wars, although it doesn't say what capacity he served in.
Just something.
Now, here's where I have a problem with that. Because the Mandalorian has gone out of the way to make sure that R5 is recognizable by that, ghastly grease stain on the back of his head where he blew a motivator.
Yeah.
Well, guess what, folks? R5D4 never actually blew a motivator. No. Instead, after spending time in the Sandcrawler with R2D2 and conferring with his droid counterpart about how R2 was sort of the best hope for the galaxy and he needed to be purchased, R5 made sure that R2 would get purchased by injecting some fluid behind his ocular sensor and then basically ignited it, blowing the top off his head, creating the scene that we all saw in Star Wars. That being said, am I supposed to believe that this guy never got an oil bath in a decade?
Nobody loved him.
Never got an oil bath in a decade.
Maybe he just always leaked fluid. Like, maybe it's just like I said in the chat, like 3PO's nipples.
I almost wished I didn't know. Looking at it now, I wished I didn't know. I wish I didn't go looking. I would rather be ignorant in this case and just be the casual fan who watched Star Wars and went, "Oh, that's the one that has a bad motivator." Because I can easily buy into, oh, this droid just goes through motivators and he blows one every, couple of cycles or something.
Yeah.
That would
maybe
make sense
he
for me.
uses that trick to get out of chores. Maybe he's like, I don't want to do the dishes. Maybe we'll see him blow a motivator later.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's better than the Legends one where he's force sensitive and for some reason sacrifices himself.
Yeah.
Rather than make R2 force sensitive, which I could do a whole show on. I have a theory.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's a little better than the wacky random side periphery force sensitive non-important character.
Eric says that some stains don't wash off or aren't worth scrubbing for hours. And you know what? You would be absolutely correct, except when we get to the next scene and
so when we first to hammer down on this, remember when we first see him in season 1?
R5, the stain's there.
That little part is missing. It's completely missing.
Is the panel gone?
The panel is missing outright.
I'd have to go back and rewatch.
Yeah, and so it's like that's they want us to know that that's the same droid.
That it is the same droid. And
so I'm going to go. That's the same Treadwell too.
There's all those there. Yeah. There's all the behind scenes stuff where they brought with Dave Filoni where they rolled the droid out, the actual physical model, and Dave said, "Can we repaint it to look like R5D4?" And that's as simple as how that happened.
Yeah, right.
But this is the kind of stuff that the story group is supposed to catch
and say, how did he get from point A to point B?
So this is where like you are
Any
creating.
luck with your tweet?
No, I did not. I've been checking.
I know. You got to be famous to.
Exactly. Yeah, the very thing that brought me in, it's R5D4, is the same thing that took me out of it, because you can't convince me that between the time of the rebellion till somewhere 9 to 12 ABY that droid never got an oil bath. Now, to follow up on Eric's comment about how it's, some stains don't wash off or they aren't worth scrubbing for hours, that would be totally acceptable if it were true in this context. But as soon as they load him in the droid socket, he's all cleaned up and it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I love this show. I love Star Wars, but like sometimes it is absolutely maddening.
Let's just say in headcanon, he just constantly blows motivators and
I'm fine with that.
From a certain point of view, story is just someone's take on that.
Yeah.
So the first time it blew up, it actually ruptured something. Now he just leaks.
I would just rather, you buy a used car and some used car just goes through, you're blowing timing belts all the time.
Yeah.
I just look at it that way.
Yeah.
I got it. It's time for another timing belt. Okay. Yeah. All right. With R5 nestled away in the newly reinstalled droid socket, they all rocket off to Mandalore with fireworks erupting all around them, and we get our title card for the episode. This is a cool little spot here. Did you guys catch the line about, "Hey kid, are you ready for an adventure?" I did appreciate that line. All right. So another surprise here for me, and now that we're leaving, I mean, I know we made it to Mandalore in breakneck time. I want to go back to the Boba Fett thing for a second, because given the connection between Din Djarin and Boba Fett, would you not think that at least as a courtesy, he would have just checked in to say, "Hey, I'm here," out of courtesy? When another Mandalorian, a known Mandalorian bounty hunter, shows up on your world, you might want to know about it. True. So I'm sure we're going to see Boba Fett later, but I thought at least he would have hung out a little bit longer.
Yeah, but Boba Fett's already told him, I don't believe in that traditional stuff or the living waters or anything. So
that's true.
More important to Mando, right?
Right.
Would have been a 50-minute episode.
Eric says that Boba might have talked him out of it, and we can't have that. No, we can't. We must move on.
Yeah, he'd probably hire him as muscle.
Last week, before the droid socket was reinstalled, now we knew that this was going to happen. This was very clear through the marketing material. We knew that R5 was going to be reinstalled. I spent some time talking about the pram and sort of how is the pram stored? How does it access the ship?
Yeah.
And, I actually took some time to mock this up because I actually think it's hilarious now that he's reinstalled that this is how much the show wants you to suspend disbelief. And don't get me wrong, that's exactly what I want to do. I do want to suspend my disbelief because I think it's, space fantasy and it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, because we did get a really good shot of the bottom of this ship.
We did this week. So this is how ridiculously impossible it is to actually make this thing fit in a starfighter.
Telling you, there's a habit trail in there.
That third engine that Peli installed makes it impossible for R5 to be spit out the back. And we do see him get plunked horizontally, gablunk, out the back end behind the engine. And I'm like, that's not possible. It's just not possible. Anyway, suspension of disbelief. It's fun.
Maybe it's got some inner mechanics like the Slave One, where it just drops him down a half centimeter and then twists.
But look, this is what I mean. Like this is a Star Wars Black Series R5D4 that I scaled. I used the head to scale it to the image.
Yeah.
And when you start rotating that
there's not a lot of wiggle room.
There's no wiggle. There's no way. Look at where the feet are literally straddling that engine, like Boba on a speeder bike, ride it like a panther, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's just nowhere for it to turn. It can't make the swing, right? As the truck drivers would say.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, man, do I sound like I'm complaining a lot this week?
Yeah.
I have to see the bottom of it and better. Maybe the engine starts a little further back. Like I know like there's the cowling there, but
yeah. Lauren says it's not a mine, it's a tomb. So foreboding. And then Eric just wants me to know that My science is harshing his space magic.
Space wizard.
I'm so sorry. Space wizards and laser swords. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
He turns to jelly, slides up in there, and we're good to go.
We have both in this episode, by the way. A real live space wizard and a real laser sword.
I've seen someone flush a 1 liter bottle of water. So I mean,
well,
he could get in there somehow.
Fair enough. Well, arriving in orbit over Mandalore, Din Djarin gives Grogu an impromptu history lesson about how every Mandalorian can trace their roots back to the planet, explaining that he's never actually been there. He points at the moon of Concordia and says that's where he grew up. And then he points to the Bo-Katan's homeworld of Kalevala on the nav display. He finishes the history lesson by reinforcing that Mandalorians need to know their way around maps so they'll never be lost. This is an important detail in the episode this week.
And it's just like a continuing lesson. Like last week, he was learning what all the dials are for. And
yeah, exactly.
This week, we're going to learn a little bit more.
Well, then they descend into the Mandalorian atmosphere and get pelted by intense rains and electromagnetic disturbances that wreak havoc on Mando's instruments. I don't think there's anything groundbreaking here that we weren't expecting.
No.
No, except it's a callback to Dagobah, right?
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
Breaking through the cloud cover, Mando explains how Imperial proton bombs must have disrupted the planet's atmosphere, which is what's causing the electromagnetic issues. But because of those EM issues, they will not be able to use long-range communications when they're on the surface. That means they will not be able to talk to anybody in space.
Cut off.
The entire surface of the planet, as far as you can see, has been completely glassed, including the impact craters, and Mando puts down on the edge of Sundari City.
You're watching with descriptive audio?
Always.
That glass is trinitite.
I have a whole rundown on that.
And she says it like 95 times, almost as many times as she says the word arachnid.
I did not use that word at all in my description this week.
Eric says, great teacher, Mando.
On the job training is how to do it. It's so true. As you said, Hank, the descriptive audio uses the real world term trinitite to describe the green glass. Now, trinitite also can be referred to as atmosite or Alamogordo glass, and it is the glassy residue that's left that was left on the desert floor after the 1945 Trinity nuclear bomb test near the city of Alamogordo, New Mexico. Trinity was the code name for the first nuclear bomb test ever by the United States Army. Now, most trinitite is actually green, but there were sections of red at the blast site and even more rare black trinitite. And while trinitite is not illegal to own, it has been illegal to gather since 1953. And believe it or not, it is considered safe to handle, although it remains radioactive.
So it's like real life kryptonite.
Kind of, yeah. Here's a fun one for you. Alamogordo just happens to be home to the world's largest pistachio.
Ooh.
And the Alamogordo landfill was the site of the rumored millions of copies of the world's worst video game, E.T., having been bulldozed in.
Oh, man.
Roughly 1,300 copies were actually recovered in a 2014 excavation, which there's an entire documentary on it.
It is.
Yeah. Atari Game Over is the name of the
documentary.
That's what it's called.
There
the film. It's worth watching, by the way, too.
Totally is. It's a neat adventure.
So yeah, trinitite. If you didn't know,
don't go gathering it.
What'd you guys think of the actual look, though?
It was what I kind of expected. Like as far as a glass planet goes,
I got real. You say kryptonite,
Krypton vibes.
I got Krypton vibes here. Yeah,
heavy
like Fortress of
Krypton
Solitude.
Yeah.
Especially from the Krypton miniseries or the television series that was prematurely canceled.
Yes, the first series that actually delivers a good-looking Doomsday.
Lauren says that she owned E.T. when she was a child. Now, did you actually figure out how to play it? Was it actually enjoyable for you? Because
no,
I have memories of playing it.
I also owned it, and it was I would turn it every once in a while. I would put it in and turn it on and go, oh, it's ET, right? And then go, oh yeah.
So bad.
Let me walk across this green screen.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
And fall in a hole. What do I do? What do I
Precisely.
get? Fall in the hole, get out of the hole. Fall in the hole, get out of the hole. And what's the guy with the hat? What's he doing? Unplayable, says Eric.
totally
yes,
was.
you're absolutely true.
There's a reason it got buried.
Yeah. So going back to that plunking R5 out the back of the ship, bloop, there it is. Mando deploys a reluctant R5 to go over to the opening that leads into the Sindari underground and to take an air sample to determine if the atmosphere is actually breathable. As R5 disappears behind the massive glass shards, Mando and Grogu track the droid using the N1's sensors, but then R5 suddenly disappears off the scope. So sealing his helmet, Mando is forced to go out of his ship and go look for R5.
So that solves a question we've had for a while, right?
Is there an independent oxygen supply in Mandalorian
Can you
armor?
pressurize? Could he be okay in open space for a few minutes?
Could he be?
Answer,
Absolutely.
The answer looks like it's yes. And then the Vader breathing, the but very different, like the awesome, just an awesome touch.
Eric's got a good question here, and I'm going to save it for a second because it ties into what I want to talk about next. Din utters a line. This is normally droid work. That's another important detail because think about, I want to tie this in. Remember that line when we get to the section on the cyborg. This is normally droid work.
Okay.
Because what did they do? We've seen in the flashback sequence with the Night of 1,000 Tears, there were no troops.
No, it was all
all droids.
Yeah.
It was all droids.
TIE fighters, but
that was the bombing run was TIE fighters, but on the
surface of the planet
sweep
marching, yeah.
The sweep for survivors was Viper probe droids and KX security droids. Now, Eric says, answer me this. Does a starship not have those sensors? You would think.
I don't know. Like,
What
that's
it
why
says
you
that-
have an astromech droid.
It's a fighter. So, I mean, if it was a science vessel, I have no trouble with that.
So,
do
because
starfighters need that?
well, we're
'cause
totally
they're
talking. What's it called?
We're talking Star Trek now.
An amazing game. There's a game where you're like, it's open world game where you
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky. You have sensors
No
in No
Man's
Man's
Sky.
Sky that tell you what the atmosphere is like. But
Yeah,
I would think on a straight up fighter like that, built for speed and maneuverability, and then killing, you would rely heavily on your astromech droid.
Yeah.
And then we know that from Empire Strikes Back, an astromech droid's sensors are highly tuned for different capabilities. Like R2's looking, it's like he's trying
R2's
to ping
little
off
radar
living creatures.
Yeah, he was like
Right?
he had. It's in the. I want to say in the novelization of Empire, it talks about like he's reaching out something like 100 kilometers or something with that
Yeah,
whole
man.
thing. Like, yeah.
I would just say that a droid is just it's built for this type of thing where we're a fighter, like maybe the Falcon or bigger has those kind of sensors. But I think maybe I'll just chalk it up to Starfighter, and
I would as well. And you know what? We have a real affection for droids on our show. I mean, they are literally the jackknifes of Star Wars, really. The multi-tool.
And really, we don't know what else Pelly took out of this thing when she was modding it, right?
That is true. But it is built for space travel without an astromech. Well, that's an interesting thought.
built for fighting, though. It's built for fighting in space.
I would only counter that thought with not originally. The ship was built with a droid socket. That's how they were manufactured.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
They were intended to be used in concert with an astromech droid. It was only Pelly that changed the design and stripped it out.
And were they exclusive to Naboo though? Like
what's that?
The N1 Starfighter.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
So
they were.
They didn't have to go out and explore and find different atmospheres. It was just go out, fight, and come back.
Planetary Defense Force for let's remember, prior to the Trade Federation or the blockade of Naboo, there hadn't been a conflict in the galaxy for what? Thousands of years, hundreds of years, a long time.
They're probably like snowbirds. Those guys, you know what I mean? They're probably just like stunt flyers.
Yeah, they could very well have been. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's so true. That's a good point. All right, so what was I going to do here? Oh, right, I've got some language for us this week. We always like to chew on the language. This one, I did not enjoy this. So, by the way,
Don't swear at me.
With
Futhork.
with the Orabesh that's on the altimeter PSI gauge, we've got 2 languages just in the Starfighter alone, and by the time we get to the end of the episode and we've added in ancient Mandoa, that's 3 languages in 1 episode. Don't ever make me do this again.
And none. Yeah. Wicked.
Sorry.
So the gauges in Mando's cockpit, the best that I could make out says system ready, M flight. Their navigation bearings, T and S, I could not make out the top or the bottom. And then around the other gauge, the I guess the scope there, system online, turbo boost enabled. That's so 80s, turbo boost.
I love it.
Life
Punch
support
it,
active. Now I've included translations for both of these. These are the traditional Naboo languages that are spoken by the human population. Futhork. Now that's the glyphs that we actually see inside Mando's cockpit. That is the newer, the more recent of the 2 human Naboo languages, and this is basically what's used in everyday conversation. It's what most of the common people use. Now, Futhark, on the other hand, now that's the circular oblong glyphs that were emblazoned on the sides of the starfighters in the Phantom Message. The Phantom Message?
Oh, it was a Phantom Message, all right.
Phantom Message?
That's a good movie.
Phantom Message? In the Phantom Menace, now Futhark is a more ancient language, and it is the language that is primarily used by royalty and nobility, as well as government and the military to identify starships. Yeah. In real world terms, by the way, Futhark was actually a Scandinavian runic alphabet evolved from an earlier 13th century runic alphabet called Futhork. So both of them are rooted in the real world.
Neat.
Let's just get caught up here on the chat here for a second here. What do we got here?
Eric says, good bounty hunter.
A good bounty hunter, particularly one with a slowly healing distaste for droids, should have that installed in their ship, though.
True.
I can't argue with that. Follow-up comment says, though maybe this is symbolic that he's not a bounty hunter anymore and is destined for more. That's been kicked around quite a bit in the fan community. Not a bounty hunter anymore. We've said it just in practical terms. Where are you going to keep? Where's the cold storage on that? On the N1, I mean.
True.
Or the warm storage, for that matter.
But on the flip side of that, if you're bounty hunting, you're not going exploring in uninhabitable planets. You're going to habitable planets that are hiding your bounty.
I mean, that's how he paid the bills before, but now that the bills aren't now there's other ways to sort of fulfill that niche.
Yeah.
He's sort of called to a higher order. So those skills still transfer over.
They do.
Right?
The Razor Crest made a point of showing us that, Mandalorians use the toilet, and now we don't even get to, we see him get to sip on a bit of soup, but that whole, like, all those things that you just don't see.
Yeah.
Because they just don't serve the story, but
they're there.
Yeah.
And you look at, in the United States, there's a pretty fine line between marshals, state marshals and bail bondsmen.
Oh, yeah.
Like bounty hunters, so he's got all these avenues that he could return to should this endeavor fail.
If this doesn't work,
he's got a bunch of jobs
back on. Yeah,
right? Boba Fett would hire him. Bo-Katan
go
let him grovel at her feet. He could
if he could give up his religion, he can go and be. Yeah, he could go back to Navarro,
king of the Tusken Raiders. All kinds of things could happen to this guy.
Yeah. Well, following the same path as R5, Mando utters the famous horror movie line, "I'll be right back," and then heads underground through a cave entrance. Coming to the edge of a downward slope, he gazes at the expansive underground ruins of Sundari City. But R5 is nowhere to be found. Suddenly, Mando is attacked by primitive cave-dwelling humanoids that erupt from the ceiling armed with clubs and cudgels. After dispatching a couple of them with his blaster, Mando is knocked to the ground, but he comes up swinging clumsily with the Darksaber, and between that and his vibroblade is able to fight off the rest of his assailants. Once the fight is over, Mando spots R5 toppled over in a nearby pile of rubble, and he rights the droid and takes him back to the ship.
Okay, full stop.
Yep.
Okay, so he's pretty clumsy with this blade, and we've seen We've seen that before. He's, and I've said this before, and I think I said it recently in the chat. He Bruce Willis the way he fights. Like he headbutts people with his,
sure.
He absorbs a lot of damage because he knows he can take it. So he's forever blocking with shoulders and chests and foreheads, and like he's the one I can think of that pit fighting arena where he kept headbutting people's fists, right? Like they would punch him and he would lead with his head.
Right.
Okay, so he's had 2 years with this sword.
He throws one off a cliff.
Like Favreau laid it down. It's been 2 years since the Book of Boba Fett.
That's right. Yeah.
And he's not gotten any better with it.
Okay,
he didn't maim himself.
Trials of the Darksaber and the words of Kanan Jarrus, and really talking about that.
So Lauren and I were talking a lot about this, and he's fighting himself.
Of course he is.
He doesn't believe. He's not sure what to believe. Let's just put it that way. He's got too many questions, like the self-doubt and his path in the galaxy. And I think that's the when we see in a few minutes when she picks it up, that's one thing about her character, like arrogant or narcissistic or whatever you want to call her.
Yeah.
She has no doubt, and she wields that thing like it's a feather.
Yeah, she does. Eric says that protecting your soft parts with your hard parts, that's Fight School 101.
Yeah. That's target practice.
If you're following along on the video version of the podcast, I've just included an older image of Sundari City just to contrast it against the ruins of Sundari. Man, the place is really, interestingly enough, considering they were proton fusion bombs, I think is what they called them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There's quite a bit of infrastructure that has survived, surprisingly.
Yeah.
So it's overgrown fast for a place that didn't have growth.
Yeah.
Right. It was a desert, domed cities in a desert. It's overgrown quite a bit. Like crystallized, like rocks have grown into things, and there seems to be like some sort of rough foliage and stuff there.
It does kind of look that way.
And it hasn't been that long, right? Like,
no, it hasn't, because we're
5
talking
to 7 years, like maybe 9 years since Return of the Jedi. Now, like that's a little bit up in the air.
Four BBY at the destruction of
Mandalore.
Well, sorry, I shouldn't say that. When is we see Sundari City at the end? Well, not the end. When we last see Sundari City in Rebels, that would be about 4 BBY
years prior.
Right. So suggesting that like the
somewhere between then and
late
now,
in the game. Yeah,
there's been some form of the Mandalorians tried to oust the Empire, and it didn't go very well.
Yeah. No.
Now that's the story that I would love to chew on more. I want to see more of that.
I was surprised that I mean, maybe we'll get into it too. Like these aren't spoilers; it's speculation. But I'm surprised that there's no Imperial presence on the world at all. Like,
isn't that something? That is something.
How the Americans leave a little base everywhere they go.
Sure.
Like,
yeah. Did the
unless
Imperials?
They think they stripped it, and
that's what I mean. Did the Empire, drink their own Kool-Aid, and they really think it was poisoned as well, right?
Yeah.
We know that there is radioactivity in the atmosphere, so I mean, at some point, look at Chernobyl. I mean, it's still not. People don't go to Chernobyl, right? And it's been how many decades later?
Yeah.
So, there could be an element of that, right?
True.
Eric says that no presence lends credence to the dead cursed world bit. Oh, it really does. It really does. Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about this. These cavemen here. These are what are referred to later on as Alamites. Best I can tell, this is a new species being introduced here for the first time, but no surprise.
Or are they a mutated species that was there before?
Well, Bo-Katan says that they lived in the wastelands beyond the cities. Beyond the cities, but now they
take up residence.
They've moved in,
but they certainly share that jutting tusk of the mythosaur.
They do, yeah. I describe these guys as an elongated chimpanzee features with like 2 noses and 4 eyes. Very interesting that they have bear a strong resemblance to the Morlocks from the 1960 Time Machine film.
Amen.
Doug's gonna chime in here first time tonight. Doug, thanks for joining us. Appreciated hanging out this afternoon. Was the droid an Imperial trap? We are going to spend a long time. I'm going to spend a long time talking about this thing because I obsessed over this. I obsessed over this thing so badly. Yeah. I want to say the short answer is no.
Did you include any of my slides that I? You hate my answer.
If you sent them to me, then I would have included it.
Okay.
So
I didn't have slides per se, but I had some images in the chat there. But you hated my ideas.
What's that? What?
The Palpatine.
I hated your idea. Oh no, I did not put those in because I couldn't tell if you were being serious or not.
Oh, I fully was.
What?
I fully was.
Oh, I'm gonna fight you so bad.
Before you go too far, though,
I'm gonna reach this microphone.
I've got some really compelling Snoke images I was going through too that are like
cool.
Whoa.
The advanced growth
of the Alamites?
No, of the
of
the rocks and whatnot.
The rocks,
the growth under there, basically with green glass over top of it, where the sun is streaking through. You're in a giant greenhouse now.
Oh yeah, I guess it is translucent.
So any form of vegetation plus a little radiation and some extra sunlight, it's going to go fast.
That's entirely possible. I never actually thought of it that way, but we do see later on that it is translucent.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like in your comparison shot, you see nice little streams of light coming through, like clean.
Yeah.
But in the current one, they're still there, like not as clean, but still streaking through.
The cloud cover is interesting too, because as you approach the planet, you can't see any surface features. It looks like raging black, storms like on Earth.
Yeah.
The sun would be blocked.
And I'm wondering if they're just like roving storms.
Oh,
similar to Camino.
Yeah,
maybe
it just looked like light cloud cover diffusing because it looked just overcast on the surface. Like I guess that's a better shot than
we need a
tomb, right? Like it's going to be.
We need a nuclear scientist to tell us about how nuclear blast affects weather.
Yeah, because it wasn't like a meteor that would throw a dust cloud up that would remain for 1,000 years.
No, but I mean, we did get a clear shot of
enough stuff into the atmosphere to mess it up.
There was the flashback to Night of 1,000 Tears was a giant mushroom over Sundari when it went up.
Yeah. Multiple, and it looked like they were just like every one of those was like nuclear capable.
Yeah.
Windex would make a killing on this planet.
Seriously. Okay, back at the ship, Mando gets a toxicity report from R5 and is surprised to learn that the atmosphere, not only is it not poisonous, it is actually quite breathable. So leaving R5 with the starfighter, he and Grogu head back into the underground. Mando jetpacks off the edge of the sloped entrance while Grogu follows him down in the hoverpram. And they float down several hundred feet. Finally reaching the bottom, they turn on their flashlights, which, by the way, are not handheld. And using the dripping water as a guide, they start making their way to where the entrance of the mines should be. At least that's what they think.
Mm-hmm.
Along the way, we pass a couple of reptilian creatures reminiscent of crocodiles that we will later find out are actually winged and can fly. I find it funny that Mando just presumes the water should lead to the mines.
Which way does it flow?
Right. Lauren says that all his decisions from this point are ridiculous.
Yeah, he's only got.
He does play this level. It's like you said. He does play this level like he's level 1 character.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It is so true. While heading down another passage that leads deeper into the Sundari underground, Mando sweeps the area in front of him with both his helmet, light, and a blaster pistol. Spotting the remains of a battered Mandalorian helmet in the dirt, he stops to pick it up to take a better look at it. But the helmet is nothing more than a cleverly placed bait for a giant bear trap-like device that's just below the surface, and it snaps shut, ensnaring Mando in a tight metal cage. What's more remarkable is that this entire mechanism is actually fixed to the underside of a giant crab-like cyborg, whom from this point on I shall call the Craborg. That's what I call him. He's the Craborg.
There you go.
The entire thing flips over onto its feet and deploys a small arm with a needle on it that stabs Mando in the neck and knocks him out. Grogu watches from behind some rubble as the Craborg carries Mando off and then follows, staying just out of sight.
So I love the classic trick, like, the skull, you pick it up. Like, it's even like, that's where like Boba places the bomb and inside, like, it's like, who falls for that? Like, don't you guys have TV in Star Wars?
Level
But the
one
way they
character.
use the bleached Beskar,
Yeah.
like at the skull that you would, in the same scene in a different movie you would find.
Well, this
That's
keep
dope.
that in mind. The amount of and I don't have great imagery for it, but I mean, if you watch the episode, then you would have seen that there is Beskar scattered in this thing's lair. It's everywhere. There's literally mounds of helmets, which I incorrectly mistook for being eggs when I first watched it, which is why initially I actually thought that the cyborg was a Geonosian, which is supposed to be wiped out.
There's still heavy Geonosian vibes. I'm not convinced that there's not a connection there, especially with the all the droidy stuff and their connection to the separatists.
I do want to,
and it seems to be using language.
The chittery whatever. Yeah, exactly. The noise that it
seems
makes.
to be using. Yeah, the language seems to be similar to Geonosian.
I want to preface the entire conversation that we're going to have around this cyborg character with this scene right here. We have to keep in mind that this thing baited a trap and it laid there in wait.
Mm-hmm.
That's important to why
like a Sith Lord.
Like something that's just looking for its next meal.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So basically it would be waiting for one of those Morlock-like creatures.
I don't actually believe that the Alamites, I believe the Alamites living in the same caverns as this thing are smart enough to avoid it.
Probably at this point.
So I'm just, while we're here now, I'll just toss it out right now.
I thought I saw some Stormtrooper helmets in there too.
You may have. I can't say if I did or I didn't. I know that there was a ton of Mandalorian armor, and we got that piece of Trinitite that Mando acquired from a traveler. We know that people have traveled here before.
Mm-hmm.
Are there enough people traveling to Mandalore to feed this thing on the regular, or as I'm more inclined to believe, there are other Mandalorian survivors still living here?
Maybe.
That's what I think. Doug says it sounds like General Grievous. We do have a Grievous connection. I'm going to talk about that too.
Yeah, the eye is wrong though.
Yeah. All right. Well, where are we going here next? Well, Grogu watches. Oh, hang on a second. I jumped too far, didn't I? 19. Oh, I did. I skipped right over 18. Okay, so the arachnid droid, but it's clearly a cyborg, judging by its organic eye that we can see. And there is our Grievous, part of our Grievous connection. We have that biological eye. Also, later on, when the smaller cyborg climbs out, by the way, the Craborg, it's just a giant mech suit. I don't think it's anything other than that.
The one claw gave me vibes from RoboCop 2.
Oh, yeah.
Like just that claw, the design of it, particularly when she first meets Kane and she's like, "Oh, you're all metal." That's the claw that reminds me of it.
I thought it had some trappings of the crab droids from Attack of the Clones, at least the legs anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at the concept art, I did, as you'll see later on, I did send out a tweet on this, but it to me looks like it's the body or the head of a Viper probe droid, at least.
Blown up.
Yeah. It's got that right down to the seam around the midsection.
Yeah.
But that's what it is. That is our the Craborg, as I'm calling it.
So there's a precedent for a Sith Lord cobbling together robot parts to make himself
absolutely
whole.
Is.
So
absolutely is.
Yeah. just throwing that out there too.
Of which Grievous is not a Sith Lord.
Yeah. No, not Grievous. No.
And Vader didn't make his own body.
No, but one Darth Maul might have had something to do with
Darth Maul.
That's possibly
cobbled together robot parts.
Yeah, I don't. That's paper thin.
Yeah,
that stuff's paper thin.
Yeah.
All right, so Grogu watches from cover as the Craborg carries Mando off in the metal cage that looks like a rotisserie. It places him on a rack, and then it walks to another part of the room where it folds in its pincers and arms and then lowers itself to the ground. Closing in on the single organic eye, it pulls back from the monocular viewport, and then a hatch on the back of the crab droid body opens, and moving like a spindly humanoid cyborg climbs out and down the hull. It has 6 limbs and what appears as quills protruding from its back, and they quiver just like a real-life massif. Standing up on its hind limbs, the cyborg grabs some kind of electro staff and moves to a console where it activates some controls. Well, then the creature moves over to the rotisserie cage and removes Mando's blaster and the Darksaber, tossing them to the floor. No Sith Lord would do that. Just when you thought it was just a Kraborg, no, that was just a mech suit for another nightmarish cyborg. Now, some other inspiration here. I couldn't help, you can't help but not see this.
Yeah.
The Lost in Space robot from the Netflix series. I also chucked in a shot of the Geth from the Mass Effect series. And then just to illustrate those quills, a nice shot of a Massif there. Yeah.
Now, this version, though, did give me heavy Grievous vibes.
Okay. Yeah.
Like the arm configuration. It looked like,
Yeah.
Well, we're here now. Let's do it. Let's get into all of the theories and let's suss this out. Where are we going with this guy? What do we all think?
It's definitely not this, but maybe this is the Star Wars equivalent of Pickle Rick. So the little organic piece in the middle, it's just kind of stabbed everything on and snapped it together and gone from there. But
no,
we do know that there's like
my camera. Can you guys still hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, so my camera has decided to overheat, which is interesting because it's never overheated in the months that I've owned it. So that means it must be pretty warm in this room.
Maybe.
I don't even have a backup to I don't even have a backup to wow.
Slide on in beside Andy.
So I was gonna say if we pivot Andy's camera so we can sort of like occupy. There we are. There's both of us.
Awesome.
You know what? We're just gonna keep going. We'll make this work.
Yeah, man.
I'm turning the camera.
I could go off air and call in if you want.
No, we don't have to do that. Yeah, so I'm gonna turn that just a little bit more. Okay, that's better. So I can lean in if I have to. Okay.
Nice.
But yeah, like the arms on this thing, I definitely felt were Grievous-ish.
Well, I lost audio. Can you hear me? I've lost all audio.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
What happened there? Oh, I know why. Because I took myself out of the stream. Sorry. Which also muted the audio. Let's see if I can undo that.
I can hear you, Hank.
Me, do I hear?
It's okay. I'm going to leave the blank screen in there just because I don't want to mess around with this midstream.
I can hear you both.
All right. Sorry about that, everybody. I apologize.
No problem. I was just talking about how that's Palpatine.
Technical stuff. Yes. Okay. All right. So Eric has a thought. He says that throwaway bad guy designed specifically to throw the deep lore fanboys into a frenzy of mad speculation in an attempt to obscure the general lack of overall content in the episode.
Yeah, that's pretty thin too, though.
Wow. All right. Well, I mean, I don't want to. I gotta look ahead here for a second. Where's my?
I mean, really, we haven't been treated to the entire lore of Mandalore yet.
We have not.
So aside from a couple creatures that Bo-Katan has said, yeah, they're here.
No.
And the Mythosaur might be there, but what else was roaming around outside those domes?
The Elamites.
Besides
the Elamites, I don't know. I don't know. This is the weird thing. So that the line from Bo-Katan is, if they survived, then what else did?
Yeah.
And that's where I automatically go to this thing. And I'm going to bump ahead to it now. This is where I like to point out that I think that this is a Mandalorian survivor of the Night of 1,000 Tears. And the reason I say that is going back to that concept art, like it does look like a Viper probe droid for the crab body, but taking a closer look at the smaller guy's head, it looks an awful lot like a modified KX droid head.
Mm-hmm.
And if we go back to that flashback sequence,
we know they were there.
That's all that was there. That's all we see is Viper droids and KX security droids sweeping the planet's surface, executing survivors. I think it's fair to say that someone survived. Now, like I said before, the layer, it is littered with Mandalorian armor. Like there are literal piles of helmets and other pieces scattered throughout the layer. And I suspect that most of them came from other survivor victims. that goes back to this thing's just laying in wait for its next meal. Keep in mind, this isn't some big imperial leftover machine that's there to hunt down and kill. It needs Din Djarin's blood to survive.
Yeah, because it's draining him of it.
We've seen another Sith Lord hooked up to tubes, draining life essences.
That's true.
I
think it's too big. I think it's too big of a stretch.
It's probably too big of a
what's
stretch.
Going on. Like, why would you choose Mandalore when you've got Wayland that is basically laying there, especially with what's going on in the Bad Batch? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It's pretty interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I just can't get there.
I know.
I just can't get there.
Like side story, like his corpse was blown to smithereens.
Yeah.
And we have the legends sort of, he's floating through space, and he's got just the idea that he's trying to cobble a new body together. And here's a crazy reason, because part of his brain and his left eye are hunkered down in the bowels of maybe he was attached to the fleet, like he's floating around with the fleet after they.
I don't know.
They bombed it.
Maybe
it's a Sith-looking eye, and you're right, Eric. 100%. You're right as hell. That we spent half an hour on.
We're having some serious nerd rage over here.
It's awesome.
I hope you're enjoying the show. I did take a moment to tweet out. I tweeted Pablo Hidalgo, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and Rick Famuyiwa to ask them, is this nightmare cyborg in The Mandalorian Chapter 18 a survivor of the Night of 1,000 Tears, cobbled together from probe droid and KX security droid parts? Because that is surely what it looks like to me. Unsurprisingly, I did not get an answer.
Yeah.
Give him time.
Like how prominent he was, and how he went black already once and popped back to
right.
I don't think we've seen the last of this particular little thing.
Those Eric says the massive quills. The massive quills make me think that there is something more interesting going on. It implies using organic components for some reason. If this is a Mando survivor, poaching organics needed to keep your own organics alive is a great idea. That's where I kind of lean into. Now, I tried to look. I could not tell if the quills were organic or if they were machine. It was too hard to tell. But going back to that Grievous connection, there is an organ sac on this guy with a chest box that is pumping the fluids around.
It's circulating through his body like your heart would do, for sure.
It's absolutely 100%. Doing that.
Yeah.
But absolutely, he needs all that Mandalorian armor that's laying around. Those are previous meals.
Yeah.
That's where my mind goes with this.
Victims.
It may not even be a Mandalorian. It could just be some other unfortunate thing that just happened to be there, wrong place at the wrong time when it happened.
Could this be a more vicious version of the brain spiders we see on Tatooine?
Is it also weird that he's at the mouth of the gates to the waters?
He's not right there. There's still quite a bit of travel to get there.
If he's the one random survivor cobbling together, like he's tricked a lot of Mandalorians into going this way.
Absolutely. But I mean, if you were in the position of a Mandalorian,
does he know
survivor,
where the waters are? I mean, are people heading towards the waters?
I doubt that. I think that, again, it comes down to there is enough. I go back to him laying in wait, setting that trap. There has to be, with enough regularity, a guaranteed meal coming through there for him to make for it to be
that's
worth
what I'm
it.
saying. So when descriptive audio lady calls him an arachnid, spiders build their webs, right, in high traffic areas.
Yeah.
And what makes this part of the bowels of Mandalore a high traffic area?
Well, as it turns out, after the Great Purge,
yeah,
a lot of Mandalorians just took their helmets off. So now they all have to say, go bathe.
They've all got to go bathe in living waters. I think the idea of
have you ever had your skin removed?
I think the idea of other survivors like coming to Sundari City, to the capital, that's no far stretch of the imagination at all.
No, but then going as deep as you can possibly go.
Well, wouldn't you? You would, though, to get away from the radiation.
Yeah, get away from the surface anyway.
Right. Eric says if you're going to hunt Mandos, pick an ambush spot near a holy site. That's not a bad idea.
And that's exactly it. Like, so it gives you this higher Like there's a whole other level of higher functioning going on here too.
Then that tells me that if that is the case, then that tells me that this, whatever this is versed in Mandalorian culture.
So then it lends the Sith Lord may not be Palpatine, but it certainly lends a little credence to Maul then, doesn't it?
I've seen Maul kicked around this week. I've seen Savage Opress, and I'm like, come on. If they bring Maul back, if this is supposed to be,
that's George Lucas's wish, though, right? That was his plan before they sold to Disney. That Maul was the big bad of the second.
Well,
third arc, if you will.
Can I add one more spoke to the wheel, as it were, as we're sitting here going around
for it?
There's a what is it, the SXSW convention that's going on right now. Katie Sackhoff apparently in an interview said that on set that this thing was referred to as the crone. Does that imply that it might actually be female?
The crone, dude. Oh my god.
Yeah. So I don't know what to make of that. Do you have any insight on that?
Mother Talzin. That just makes me go. But what's their connection to Mandalore specifically?
I don't know. That's again, I'm at a loss of. I just don't know where to go with that.
And do they ever tell us that the mines have been drained
of minerals?
Beskar?
No, they don't. But because
I mean, there's another food source. Like anybody coming looking for Beskar, they're going to go towards that mine.
Well, we have a bunch of time where
somebody with a bunch of Beskar is less likely to steal Beskar.
Well, look at the stack of ingots that Mando acquired in season 1, all stamped with the Imperial logo.
Yeah.
So they definitely mined.
No, they turned it into money. Enough of it that it could be like a known, monetary
currency,
physical monetary currency in the galaxy.
Right. What number are we on right now?
I don't know.
I don't know either. I got too upset talking.
Probably 22 here.
Okay, I think we are. I think we're on 22. So are we ready to move ahead?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm sure we'll come back to it eventually.
Sith eyes.
I call it a yellow lens with a red backlit with a red light.
Yeah, Snoke's eye was blue.
The cyborg walks away. The cyborg walks away, and Grogu comes out from his hiding place and tries to use the Force to free Mando, but all he can muster is breaking a part of the mechanism that's holding the cage. The cyborg, now alerted to someone else in its lair, rushes out and tries to fry Grogu with an electro staff, while a helpless Mando tells his ward to get to Bo-Katan. Flipping into his pram, he scoots away at high speed. Yeah, this is part of why wicked. I kept going on to the Geonosian thing with the staff and the. These are weird parallels too between week to week with what's going on in the other series. We just had this whole electro staff thing going on in the Bad Batch, and now we've got another electro staff thing going on this week.
And that's the other thing too. Like in season 1, Grogu throws a mudhorn.
Oh yeah,
and that's got to weigh more than this cage. And then you couple that with 2 years of training, he should have more control. But
yeah, well, maybe that goes back to that whole, is it 2 years or is it 4 years? Because he may have had 2 years of training, but then he's also got 2 years of connecting with Mando. And as the one thing that I think is fairly irrefutable in this episode is we see a genuine fear response from Grogu.
Yeah,
in the cave.
About his dad.
Yeah.
And the descriptive audio lady also says, as he's using the Force, something breaks, which is what grabs the attention of the.
Of course, yeah, the big metal clang. I think given enough time, he probably would have gotten it right off the hole. He probably could have rendered it open, but
at the same time, he wants to go slow so he doesn't hurt him.
Yeah, I think so. Or again, there's just a weak point in the mechanism, and it fell, or it dislodged, and ding! Oh, suddenly
putting a Rancor to sleep's not good enough for you, eh?
Of course not. Yeah. Okay, well, hustling back to the surface, Grogu is chased by one of the crocodilian creatures that we now see actually has wings. Reaching the cave entrance, he's met by another Alamite, but he makes short work of that with a hefty force push. Then leaping back into the open cockpit of the N1, he points at Calavar R5 to take off. Then just as the unnamed flying crocodile slams into the canopy, just as the unnamed flying crocodile slams into the canopy and then slides off as the ship pulls away. In another suspension of disbelief moment, the magical pram,
just magically boarded it.
This is the Star Wars magic school bus. It's the magical pram. He comes flying out of the cave with it. He's several feet away from the N1, flips into the starfighter. The lid of the canopy shuts, and they are off and gone. There's a wide shot of the fighter, and the pram is gone. But don't worry, it's going to show up again.
I actually lost track of R5 later on in the episode, and I had no idea that he didn't get left behind on
Kalevala?
On Kalevala, because when he was watching the screen, I was like, that's a really good long range screen. Is he tapped into her ship? And upon several rewatches, I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Oh, wait.
It is kind of funny, though, that the crocodile type thing came out of the sewer.
That's, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's, yeah. We get a little Minox style attack.
I got that as well. Yeah. I got that as well. I did like it, though. They keep the descriptive audio called it a gator-like, but like it looks way more crocodile-like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love the look of it, though. It looks great. I couldn't find anything on it either, so presumably this is a new creature as well.
Yeah. Again, we don't know what lives on Mandalore.
Yeah. Over at Bo-Katan's castle on Kalevala, the former Mandalorian ruler is alerted by her footman droid to an unscheduled visitor. Spotting the N1 from the window and thinking that it's Din Djarin again, she goes outside and proceeds to yell at the ship, saying that she wants to be left alone. When the canopy slides open and Grogu pops up, she asks what happened to him.
Do we get a voice actor for this
for the footman droid? I did not.
So it sounds a lot like EV-99 and looks, now that we get a clear,
very similar body style.
Except for just the little,
So, no, it didn't.
Is that a class? I didn't actually get a chance to look that up. Is it EV class of droid? Like a protocol droid?
I believe it is. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
That would track then.
She orders her footman droid to download R5's memory to find out where they've been. And interesting how
at which point she learns about R2D2 and the whole.
That's right. And so that's what happened back then.
Well, we've got to go save Princess Leia.
Cool that he's able to take his life lesson on his mapping lesson that he had 10 minutes ago.
Knows where to go.
And is able to convince the droid through gesturing at a scope, fly there. But that's besides the point. The lesson here is that he is actually learning. It's the same sort of arc that we get with Omega in the Bad Batch.
Mm-hmm.
That she is learning from
in one ear and out the other. It's staying there.
She's picking up little things from here and there, which Grogu is going to do as well, because not only does she get a lesson, he get a lesson from Din Djarin, he gets more sort of history lessons with Bo-Katan as the episode moves forward. All right, so where are we at here now?
He is Mandalorian after all.
Yeah, he's been accepted in the cult of two.
He's been accepted as a foundling.
Yes.
I'm going to talk about that later too. He's a foundling. I won't say that he's a Mandalorian yet.
Well, he hasn't taken the creed yet.
Exactly. But what does the creed mean? That's a whole other conversation we'll have a little bit later on.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, with Grogu and the magically reappearing pram and R5D4 in tow, Bo-Katan takes her Gauntlet fighter, by the way. It's been around for quite a long time. And she flies back to Mandalore. She circles around Sundari City for a bit before telling them that it didn't always look like this, and then comes in to land virtually on the same spot that Mando did. She tells Grogu that she needs him to guide her to the Mandalorian, and the two set off while R5D4 scomp links into Bo's ship and watches them on a live video feed. I laughed my butt off at this. It is the inverse of like, this is droid work.
Yeah. And that's the scene that made me go, what? I didn't even see him in the background.
It's not lost on me that they're playing R5 like a scaredy cat. Like Mando even says, "Don't be a baby."
Yeah,
right. Just get out there and do it. But I like this, that it is the inverse of like, oh, you made me go out there and watch now, or while you guys watched, now I'm going to watch as you guys walk away and disappear.
And so this scene has TikTok on fire. Just Bo-Katan walking with Grogu towards the unknown there. The TikTok is a light with a mad amount of respect for this woman's figure. Let's just say, I'm not going to objectify women, but wow, she can wiggle in a set of armor, and she looks great. She looks great.
She does.
She's ready
Fantastic.
to kill.
Eric says the lady's got cake.
Right?
All right, fair enough.
She's
All
got
right.
skills too, though. That are about to be on.
Oh, she does. She's got skills, and she's going to unleash them here in short order. Yeah. So, retracing Din Djarin steps into the Sundari Undercity. Bo-Katan stops at the edge of the precipice, and she removes her helmet to look over the ruins. She tells Grogu that it was once a beautiful civilization that her family ruled over, but now it is a tomb. Reaching the tunnel entrance, Grogu is frightened by another one of those unnamed Reptavian creatures, and he actually stops kind of dead in his tracks. Now, Bo says that she understands his fear, but also that she needs him to guide her to the Mandalorian. So Grogu musters up some courage, and the two of them activate their lights, and they move on. Along the way, Bo tells Grogu that she used to know a lot of Jedi, and there was a time when Mandalorians and Jedi fought side by side. Then she asks him how good he is with the Force, and surmises that he must be pretty good if he was able to get back to her alone. I thought that was quite interesting.
A little bit of respect for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a little further on, Bo stops and she gestures for Grogu to move back. Now, something is amiss, judging by the shadows moving through the translucent trinitite on the cavern ceiling. Drawing her dual Westar 35 pistols. By the way, if you haven't checked out our Weapons of Star Wars playlist, we covered the Westar 35 in that playlist. We can tell you all about it. Bo blasts through the glass and 3 Alamites fall out, but they quickly get up and they waste no time in attacking her. And even though the Alamites disarm her of her blaster, she skillfully uses the built-in vibroblade on her vambrace to fight them off. I have to say, I am really, really happy that they have sort of let her character cut loose.
Oh, yeah.
Last season, we got to see her brood and shoot things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, she was still broody last episode, but she's actually like, oh, this
warrior.
is...
Level 10 class warrior.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Bo-Katan's not a level 1 character.
No.
No, and she's moving like the animated series, like the...
So happy to see the
super great,
the energy gauntlet come back again. I hope that becomes a mainstay. I'd like that to stick around. Love the line. Now, people are really hating on this line. Did you think your dad was the only Mandalorian?
We saw it in the trailers.
Like, they fight completely differently. I do think that Grogu was probably a little taken back by her level of skill.
Yeah. Because like he's not been exposed to too many Mandalorians yet. I mean, maybe what, 4 in total?
Maybe
5 in total, I guess.
Yeah,
or maybe 6 with Paz Vizsla.
Now, this is the scene where she actually explains what the Alamites were and that they lived on the in the wastelands. She also says that they were going to be their next meal, and then if they survived, I wonder what else might have too. Now, I think we all were like, because what did we say in Boba Fett? Someone's going to ride a mythosaur. We all knew, like, as soon as he said, we're going to the living waters, we knew there was going to be a mythosaur in there. But I would say that cyborg was also a good choice. Comment from Eric. Eric says that Mando isn't level 1. He's just so blinded by the story and his shiny legendary weapon that he's not checking his skills and class features anymore. Read your character page. That's all I got to say.
Tunnel vision.
Right. In the cyborg lair, the creature uses a broken down pump droid to siphon Mando's blood. But then Grogu and Bo arrive, and she blasts the pump droid. Advancing with both guns blazing, Bo manages to land a shot on the cyborg, but it doesn't really do anything, and it returns fire with a discharge from its electro staff that blows her completely off her feet. Now, Bo tries to get up a couple of times, and each time she does, the cyborg hits her with another discharge of electricity. It's then that she notices the hilt of the Darksaber still lying on the floor, and she uses her grapple line to recover it and then proceeds to drive it through the cyborg, seemingly killing it. Again, seeing her getting to let loose. Also,
a little bit of a Spider-Man moment.
Here's our first indication that Bo is still of conviction. The way that Sorry, she wields the Darksaber very, very differently than Din Djarin does.
Seriously.
It's not heavy for her.
No, not at all.
Some could say it's a lightsaber.
I see what you did.
Man, I haven't done that in a while.
There we go.
Wow.
One-handed, too.
Yes, one-handed. Standing over Mando, still trapped in the rotisserie cage, Bo asks him if he's okay. What's interesting here, and this should tell you a little bit about the relationship is starting to change. She uses his name for the first time. She calls him Din.
Mm-hmm.
She's never called him by his name before. I don't think she's ever used any affectation on him before now. Just you, them, they. But like, there's never been a sort of a coming together moment where they've had a conversation that like
she
you
calls
or I
him
would
brother
have.
the first time they meet.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Before she knows
anything about him.
Right, he's one of them.
Yeah,
right.
As Costco Reeves would say. Okay, well, unbeknownst to both of them, the cyborg isn't actually dead, and when its cyclopean eye flickers back open, the humanoid head detaches from its body and it scuttles away on little insectoid legs toward the Craborg mech suit.
Mm-hmm.
Din struggles to answer, and when she asks him, "Are you trying to say something?" he manages to blurt out, "Behind you," and turns just in time to avoid a killing blow from the hulking Craborg. Reigniting the Darksaber and her energy buckler, Bo-Katan deftly cuts off one of the Craborg's pinchers before pulling off a running slide underneath the mech, slicing the entire length of its underbelly. Now, coming back up behind it, the mech spins to face her, and she cuts off the other pincer. Now, the mech rears up, and one of the pincer stumps, dislodges a section of the roof, and the raining debris knocks Bo down. But she's right back up on her feet again, and she promptly cuts out the mech's two front legs, causing it to collapse in front of her, where she then drives the Darksaber through its head in a downward thrust before cutting it off entirely. Whatever life was left in the creature fades as the mech powers down and the organic eye closes.
And now we know what happened to the MODOK money.
In a blurry haze, Mando sees Bo approach his cage before falling completely unconscious. Okay, so fantastic
so good.
fight. I love this.
So
fight.
Good, crazy good. Like
it was amazingly good.
Amazingly good.
And again, with the energy buckler and the Darksaber out, it's like you can't help but make that medieval
the knight
analogy, which I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
So as I said before, Bo handles the Darksaber much, much differently than Mando. I want to touch on the cyborg one last time because in some ways this is kind of the I've really painted this thing as a survivor. But when it detaches from the humanoid body, it detaches from the organ sac and the biological components of its being. I actually think at that point it was on borrowed time. It was already dying.
It was going for that last gasp.
I don't think that there was a redundancy built into the crab mech suit part. I mean, there'd only be one. I feel like there's only, I could be wrong, one set of organs, unless we've got some other organs that are
backup organs.
You figure that there's just the brain and one eyeball attached, and maybe there's flesh. I mean, it's certainly a left eye. You can see the brow ridge and the inside of the of the left eye and stuff. But
it is.
I'm just I picture a brain in there. It's a brain in a jar. It's Kang.
Yeah,
I think it's Kang, right?
It's half a brain, maybe.
Teenage Mutant, not Kang the Conqueror, but from
Kang from TMNT. Yeah.
From Dimension X.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I do think that it was dying when it disconnected from the humanoid body, because of the whole again the Grievous analogy, right? That organ sac.
Yeah, once you get rid of the vitals.
Exactly. No more go juice. So we were running on borrowed time there. Okay, well, waking up, Mando finds himself reclined against a rock back up on the precipice that overlooks the Sundari Undercity. A few feet away, Bo-Katan prepares some food on a makeshift stove while Grogu watches with a handout, waiting for a handout. He thanks Bo-Katan for saving his life, and he tells her that she was right. The planet wasn't cursed. Rhetorically, she says, "Was I?" adding, look around. She offers Mando a cup of Pog soup. Pog soup. There's no reference for that. We don't know what it is, other than what she tells him, that any Mandalorian worth their armor was raised on it. Now he shares
pork soup.
No. Or was it? Now he
And
does
not
share
the game from the early 90s.
Pogs. Yeah, the things from the inside of your milk bottles.
Look, it's Alf. He's back in Pog form.
Mando does share the soup with Grogu, and Bo tells them that many Mandalorians were raised eating it. Getting to his feet, Mando places Grogu in the pram, and he collects his weapons. Bo tells him that he should rest, and they'll get back to her ship in good time. But Mando insists that he has to continue his quest into the mines and the living waters within. Now, Bo criticizes him for believing the stories, and she tells him there's nothing magic about the water. Then Mando talks about the Creed, and he asks, what are they without it? With their people scattered like stars across the galaxy, it is what has allowed them to survive. He says that for rescuing him, he will always be in her debt, but until he's met his obligation, he just can't go with her. And having come this far, Bo suddenly offers to take Mando to the mines, if for no other reason than he won't be able to find them on his own. What do you think about this sudden change of heart?
I agree with it. She's there. She knows the way. It'll save him time and keep him alive.
It's a funny meme going around too. It's basically like, can't you just set policy? Can't you just say to the armor, "You're not a Mandalorian. I have the sword."
Yeah.
So,
but at the same time, she's not wrong. There's nothing magic about it.
He's pretty humble. He doesn't understand that right now. Hey, go figure. He's the leader of Mandalore. He doesn't get that right now. He could set policy. He could say everybody wears their helmets backwards.
Yeah, really.
This is the way. And I don't think he doesn't understand how deep this goes yet.
But following it to the letter, he's not Mandalorian at this moment.
Yeah,
he's still apostate.
Yeah,
according to his religion.
Yeah,
the sword would say different.
Well, I feel like there's a bit of a shift here, especially given what Bo-Katan says later on when we get further into the downstairs, as it were.
Yeah.
I feel like she has every reason to want to go for herself, if for no other reason than to take a walk down take a walk down memory lane. She has a very, very interesting, fond recollection of some of the childhood events that she went through with her father.
And she says some things I didn't actually realize about the character, even though we spent a lot of time with her throughout the years too.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a throwaway line from season 2 Mando where Boba Fett calls her princess, and I thought it was a Han Solo reference. I really did think it was just like that cavalier, so long princess. But then she qualifies something here that I didn't actually understand, and that's Satine is the Duchess of Mandalore through birth.
Yeah,
because her father is the former ruler of Mandalore.
Right. Exactly.
Who is this Kryze we've never heard of? I'm really interested in that.
Interesting story. Yeah. Adam at Go Figure says real power is having it and not having to use it.
Have you ever gone mad without power? It's boring.
Eric says he who wields the pen writes the rules. That is so true.
And just making policy. It's not like I guess it's pretty radical.
I also think that this is the first inkling where these two characters are now they are both at a turning point. Where they were let's say that they were on the scale of the Mandalorian Creed, that they were the bookends. They are now both looking inward a little more towards each other now, that they are finally starting to maybe realize that there's some commonality between the two of them, which we're going to expound upon.
It's funny you say at the end. When we wrap up the episode, I have a theory, like a big long Hail Mary theory. Yeah, and it involves bookends in a lot of ways.
Well, I have some thoughts on that as well, on how this episode both contrasts and the similarities to the last episode, and I have some thoughts about that I want to talk about. But we got to get there first.
Yeah.
Well, later the Mandalorians walk down an empty street, and Din marvels, he truly marvels at the idea that this was once filled with Mandalorians. Now, Bo tells him that it really wasn't that long ago, while Din remarks that the destruction looks like it was centuries old. Well, Bo tells him that the Empire set out to punish them and wipe away their memory. Din suggests that it must be painful for her to see it this way after having witnessed its beauty. Now, Bo tells him that seeing their people fight one another over and over is what's painful. That Mandalorians killing each other for reasons that are too complicated to explain is what made them weak. And she says that because of that, they had no hope in resisting being smashed by the fist of the Empire. Then, off in the distance, Bo points out a huge gate with a narrow slit. We're going to Moria, everybody. Running down the slit, running down the length of it, and she declares that they have reached the entrance to the mines. All right. Now, Adam says that all the best theories involve bookends. Absolutely. Comment from Doug. Doug says, if the followers are religious, he can only change so much.
But they'll believe in the sword. They believe in the cross, not necessarily the guy.
Right.
That's a problem with Christianity, right? They believe in the sword. Bo-Katan literally lays it out to him last episode. You wave that thing around and they'll do anything.
And they will follow.
you
That's
want.
right. She did say
He doesn't understand how powerful he is yet.
I want to take a minute here. I want to talk about something that could be it could be nothing. It could be a throwaway. She could just be talking in broad strokes when she says the fist of the Empire. Now, she could be simply referring to the might of the Imperial military. But I also want to point something out. Now, there is a term in Star Wars lore. This is a canon term, and it is the Fist of the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the Fist of the Emperor is a title that's held by Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
Is Bo-Katan, suggesting that Vader may have had been directly responsible for the Night of 1,000 Tears?
Oh,
I could definitely see him leading something like that.
That's what I mean. Like, I totally buy into that. And I buy into it for a bunch of reasons, too. Mostly that, Vader's lust to hurt Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin knowing Obi-Wan's connection to the Duchess Satine, and therefore, by extension of that, the Mandalorian people. Anything that would hurt Obi-Wan seems like something that Vader would be right into.
All into.
Yeah.
I thought he was dead, though.
At this point, we don't know.
Dead.
We don't know at this point, Night of 1,000 Tears. So you know what? Obi-Wan would be dead. He would actually be dead.
He would actually be dead.
He would actually be dead.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, actually, we don't know that because we don't know when the Night of 1,000 Tears is. We just know that in the time of the Mandalorian right now,
yes, Obi-Wan's dead for sure.
Yeah, there is just so much going on here, like so many holes to fill in. Again, Fist of the Empire, maybe that is a reference to Vader, and maybe that this happened at the height of the Galactic Civil War.
Does that kind of language put us adjacent to Mara Jade, who's the hand of the Empire? Emperor.
She was, one of the Emperor's hands. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but you had said the last time we saw Mandalore in good condition was 4 BBY?
4 BBY, yeah.
4 BBY.
And we know that Kenobi takes place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith.
That's right.
So that means at that point, he knows Obi-Wan's alive again.
So if this happens in that period of time, then it could track.
It definitely be him trying to lure him out.
It's a high level target. You would probably put your best. It would be weird if Tarkin and him weren't involved, but
Adam says that needs to be the next standalone film. Vader cutting down Mandalorians for 120 minutes.
Did you guys see, speaking of Vader cutting people down, you see that interview with Jon Favreau? Some guy asked him who would win, and he answered, like, right on. Jon Favreau, he answered, who would win, Anakin or Luke in his prime? And he's like, it'd have to be Anakin, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it have to be Anakin?
Yeah.
Absolutely. What a great
a
lot of guys wouldn't throw that out because
I don't think there's any way of arguing that. Yeah.
No, not really. No.
How do you argue with that?
It's nice to hear it from the horse's mouth.
It is. I agree with you. Anyway, I just thought sorry, go
Filoni
ahead.
suggests that Luke might not have even been a full-fledged Jedi, even though Yoda gives him the term.
Oh yeah.
True.
There's
he got
the same interview,
tracked.
actually.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought it was interesting that she used the term Fist of the Empire and that it's remarkably close to Fist of the Emperor. I couldn't not address that. So who knows? We'll see what happens with that. Hopefully we'll see what happens with that. Well, entering the mines, Din says it looks much older than the area that they were just in. And she tells him that the mines are actually thousands of years old and the living waters are further below. When Mando asks Bo if she's been there before, she tells him yes, when she was a child. She also tells him that she was part of the royal family and she took the creed. But she says that the rituals were all just theater and pageantry for their subjects. That the people loved to watch the princess recite the tenets while her proud father looked on. She then resentfully calls it a heartwarming spectacle. Mando suggests that maybe her father was proud, and Bo acknowledges that he definitely was, and that she did not embarrass him in front of anyone. Mando then says that Bo's father sounds like he was an interesting man, and he would have liked to have known him. And she calls her father a great man who died defending Mandalore, a man that we've never met, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
There's no mention. There's
No.
no comic book, no novelization, no animation. We don't know anything.
The closest thing is that they say that they came for Satine just after she was born and took her from Kalevala to the capital. Her coronation.
So after calling her father a great man who died defending Mandalore, Din Djarin stops dead in his tracks. And when Bo-Katan turns around to look at him, he reverently bows his head as he offers her the creed, "This is the way." And then the three of them continue toward the living waters. Again, there's this, I don't know, how do you describe this? This coming together moment where I think, in his faith, in how devout he is, this is such a contrast for her when she's talking about, I took the creed and it was all theater and pageantry. To witness it from someone who actually believes it. I think there's a part of her that's, we've heard her refer to it. Oh, it's all, your cult.
Yeah.
Right.
I think she's having a bit of a shift here, that maybe it's not as culty as maybe she thought it was.
The ideologies start to overlap, and you can see like where those areas are bound to be thicker, like they're going to find common ground.
Yeah. Eric's got a comment for us. He says the tradition stretches back to the Sith Dark Council of the Old Republic times. 12 Sith with different titles: Fist of the Emperor, Rage of the Emperor, Mouth of the Emperor, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that.
Left Eye of the Emperor.
That's more than two.
All right, where was I? Okay, after arriving at an aquifire with a vaulted ceiling, Bo-Katan announces that they have arrived at the living waters. Inside the chamber, there are a pair of stone obelisks that frame a cut stone staircase that lead down into the water. By the way, if you go back, I should have put this in there. If you go back and you look at the Rebels long shot of Sundari City, the entire city is ringed with these similar steps in the very same style too.
Yes.
Bo tells Din to hang on. I want you to get the full tour. And then she steps over to one of the obelisks that bears a historical plaque. Godly enough. And that historical plaque just happens to be written in Mandoa. And Bo reads, "These mines date back to the age of the first Mandalore. According to ancient folklore, the mines were once a mythosaur lair. Mandalore the Great is said to have tamed the mythical beast. It is from these legends that the skull signet was adopted and became the symbol of our planet." Now she is almost chuckling as she's reading it, like, like that's
she's a cynic. Crap. She's still like, what she believes in herself.
Yeah. Well, hence she's rocking the darksaber like it's a knife.
She's still insular. Like, that part of her character hasn't changed. Like, why does she want to rule Mandalore? Like, I think she feels like, and I mean, there was a Katie Sackhoff interview too, where she talks about the character, and I think she feels like she's responsible for Satine's death.
Well, there is that.
She's part of the catalyst that caused that rift.
Again, like, broad strokes here. I think it's weird to go back and watch those episodes of the Clone Wars, and it's like, did she forget that she was part of the Death Watch?
Well, no. See, and she was with another Night Owl, and certainly Axe Woves, while not having the symbol, was dressed in the colors of Death Watch. Like the interviewer asks her straight up, "Are you still is Bo-Katan still involved in Death Watch?" And she kind of blushes, and she's like, she has one of those, "How do I answer this without getting
really?"
Yeah, like I'll try to
interesting.
find the clip and
I'm interested in that for sure.
But yeah.
Eric says Mythosaur. It's in the name.
Mm-hmm.
So true. That goes back to that meme, the meme that's floating around.
The Realosaur.
Yeah, the Realosaur. All right. Well, Mando wastes no time in walking over to the edge of the waters, and he stares at them intently for several moments. And it's like completely silent too. She's reading. I don't think he's even hearing her at this point. He is literally having.
He's about to.
He's having a come to Jesus moment.
Yeah,
like
he's having a spiritual experience.
Yes, he is. He is very much there.
Born again, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Bo asks him if he's all right, and he doesn't answer. He's very clearly having a deep spiritual moment here. Instead, he removes his cape and jetpack, and he steps down the stairs into the water, reciting the creed. I swear on my name and the names of the ancestors that I shall walk the way of the Mandalore, and the words of the creed shall be forever forged in my heart. But before he can complete the recitation with the closing line, this is the way, Mando is unable to finish the words, and not like Ragnar the week before, who was interrupted by a giant monster. No, because the mine is so dark, Mando can't actually see that the steps end in a sheer drop-off, and like a medieval knight falling off a sailing ship, he plummets into the unknown depths.
Beskar is heavy.
So, I mean, I was making this joke with Eric earlier in the week. I'm like, that guy's got like -100 to his swim check. Full plate armor in the water.
Full plate armor. He sinks faster than she does with the rocket pack on.
Absolutely. Lauren says Mando clearly can't swim. He proceeds to walk into deep, black, scary water with his heavy armor and an unpressurized helmet. That, yeah. So you know what happens? You know, in the D&D analogy now, every time he steps into the water, let me pressurize my helmet before I dip a toe in here.
That's a puddle. We've seen him underwater before, not fare very well with the Quarrens either.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Now
rescued
I had
by Bo-Katan there as well, twice rescued from the water.
Then we have Koska Reeves dove in after
Grogu, but Bo-Katan extends the hand and pulls him out of the water.
Yeah.
So twice now Bo-Katan has pulled him from the water.
I couldn't remember that had happened. I actually asked earlier this week, have we seen Mandalorian jetpacks underwater? Andy, you had pointed out in that scene, although we didn't see it,
but she is using it.
She came out of the water, rocketing out of the water with Grogu. They do. They work underwater. Okay, I just threw this in here because I wanted everybody to take a look at the plaque, the historical plaque, as it were. It is in fact written in Mandoa, and
Bad Batch.
Oh my gosh!
See,
now we have spent so much time on Aurebesh that there was just no way that I was going to like check Katie's work on her translation. I did translate the title. It does say Living Waters, and I took it as rote that the rest of it was all good. But there you go, Mandoa.
Awesome.
So also, while we're here, if you watch the shows with the descriptive audio and especially with the subtitles, you may have noticed that there's some interesting spelling going on here. So when Din Djarin is reciting the creed, he refers to Mandalore in this spelling, MAND''ALOR. So that is Mandalore. It is the title assumed by the sole leader of the Mandalorian people. And that is how it would be written in Mandoa. Mandalore, it's the same as the previous definition, but it is rendered in Galactic Basic. Also, it is the name of the central world of the planetary system of the same name. And then, as she said, Mandalore the Great is an ancient Mandalore who led their people in a conflict against the Jedi, who may or may not be rooted in Star Wars legends in Mandalore the Ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
But we have yet to see if that's going to play out.
Mm.
Doug, getting ahead of us. The waters are alive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they are.
They're alive. Something. And Eric says too.
Some kind of unbaptism symbolism thing. She keeps pulling him from the water.
Or is she saving him from the ultra religious end of the thing?
It's still not complete. Yeah.
Well, so this is it.
He doesn't get to finish the
creed is incomplete.
incomplete.
Yes.
I want to talk about that when we wrap up here. And again, I'm going to put that up against the baptism from last episode and how it was suddenly interrupted.
Incomplete.
At exactly the same line.
Same line. Yes, sir.
Well, slamming her helmet on, Bo-Katan dives into the living waters, and using her jetpack, she rockets to the bottom of the living waters, following a trail of air bubbles. At the bottom, she switches off her helmet light, and she looks around, spotting Mando's helmet light off in the distance, and then swims over to him. As she starts to mumble something at him, but it's garbled, like you feel like she's trying to like, hey, but he just doesn't do anything. And it's not really clear if he's all there or not. Like he's pretty limp at this point. Well, scooping him up in her arms, Bo proceeds to rocket back to the surface. And wouldn't you know it, the mythosaur is not actually a myth at all. Bo is startled at the sight of the enormous creature, as evident from the sudden expulsion of air bubbles from her helmet.
Holy crap, it's real.
Erupting from the water, Bo-Katan and Mando slam onto the platform at the top of the stairs. Now, Mando sputters and coughs while Bo breathes very heavily and just stares out over the water. And we cut to black. Now, you didn't think I was going to give you just a little tease of that, did you? All right, let's get a better look at the mythosaur for a second here and talk about this.
It's got donkey teeth.
It does. He's got an underbite. Just call him an underbite. We don't really have a real canonical look at what a mythosaur really looks like. The closest thing we have is the skull signet. That really is. Now, the skull signet I have here on screen is actually, that's not a rendering. That is actually the three-dimensional wall hanging plaque. This is from Regal Robot. It's the same company that made the life-size Dejark table and the Dejark pieces.
It's got a Harry Potter scar.
So it is a licensed piece. So presumably they had access to stuff that we do not.
So in season 1, doesn't the armor have a like? I know it's an engraven image and it looks like it's made out of Beskar, but doesn't it not a skull and actually the full head of the mythosaur?
Oh, that's a good. No, I think it's just a stylized. It's maybe smoother.
Okay,
maybe I'll have to look at that. We'll take a look at it after, but I think it's more or less what we're looking at now. If this is the skull of the mythosaur that Mandalore the Great had tamed, then who knows? I don't know.
In Legends, the ruler of Mandalore up into a certain point, and for thousands of generations, wore a skull on his head,
on their head. Yeah,
like that was the original Mandalorian mask.
One of the questions I saw come up quite a few times since the episode dropped was, why did it just passively let them go by?
Because it's tame.
Well, this is it. I'm like,
it's not a predator.
If this is the same creature that Mandalore the Great actually was rumored to tame, because let's remember, the mythosaur up until now was a myth. Well, if the thing's not a myth, maybe Mandalore the Great's not a myth, and maybe he did really tame it, and maybe it's just accustomed to people.
Yeah. Or maybe that the whole thing was a myth. Maybe he never tamed anything, and this thing's been lurking there forever.
Oh, maybe.
That's not my theory. I just hit me now that possibly maybe the whole thing is a sham.
Maybe.
I don't.
All right. I want to back this up again, and we can get into this whole conversation. I guess it's this one we want to talk about. I want to sort of juxtapose the events of the baptism last week that got interrupted, and just like visually, I mean, we have some very similar elements. We have the armor in that one who's leading the ceremony. Or witnessing the ceremony. You have Bo-Katan, who kind of fills that role in this episode.
Yeah.
The only major difference is Din Djarin is not a foundling anymore.
No.
Whereas Ragnar is. I have this interesting sort of idea that this is that, again, we talked about how both sides are starting to sort of
mesh.
As you say, they're starting to overlap. Some questions that came out of this idea was, is Din Djarin, or by extension of that Grogu, going to tame the mythosaur? And if they do, is it going to be done in a self-serving kind of way, or are they going to do it for Bo-Katan? And I have this other theory, and it kind of goes like this. Ragnar did not finish his creed. He didn't finish his creed, so he's not necessarily a Mandalorian yet. He's still a foundling.
Yeah.
Well, who else is a foundling?
Grogu.
We've already sort of hypothesized that somewhere down the season there may be some foundling on foundling conflict, which isn't necessarily fair. I don't think that's necessarily fair in the sense that Grogu, as a Force user, I feel has an advantage. But I was thinking about this, and I'm like, what if it's not the adults that are, because look at Bo-Katan and the armor represent two sides, like the two opposite, the bookends.
Yeah,
they are the opposite ends of the religious spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
Who's in the middle? Those kids. Those kids are in the middle. Those kids, they don't hate. They haven't learned those ideologies yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would it be subversive if it's the kids that unite the people?
Not at all.
I just thought it was an interesting.
It's possible.
Yeah.
In season one,
it tracks with my theory quite well, actually.
Okay.
So the first, like, now we're talking about Mandalore the Great, but we don't preface which Mandalore that was, but we do know who made the first Darksaber, and that's Tar Vizsla.
Tar Vizsla, yeah.
And then we know that generations, in legends at least, generations and generations and generations passed down father to son.
Yeah.
And that, so they got the ruling houses forever. And then, I mean, even to the point that when we're in the Clone Wars, a Vizsla still wields the weapon, even though they're exiled from the planet themselves.
Yeah.
So you have two factions. That's where the schism is. You have the new Mandalorians, they call themselves.
Okay.
Who are under Satine peace.
Yep.
And you have what they're calling the terrorists or Death Watch. And remember, in Star Wars, the terrorists
who were sequestered to Concordia.
Good guy. The rebels are the good guys in Star Wars.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the bookends I'm talking about is like at one end you have a Mandalorian who also was a Jedi, taming the mythosaur or riding the mythosaur and wielding the Darksaber to ostensibly unite the Mandalorian people. And at the other end, we have a trained, although it's 2 years, we have a Jedi who's also a Mandalorian, who we've seen tame great beasts several times.
I mean, well, so you can't really count the Mudhorn. It was less of a taming and more of a lifting.
But that's foreshadowing if I've ever seen it. Like, and the Rancor is more on the nose. Literally, he puts his hand on the nose of the Rancor.
Yeah, Mick Dundee's that thing.
Right? And so my prediction is that the Mandalore is Grogu.
Well, that's an interesting thought.
And that the season 4 is the usurpers challenging him for the throne, led by the armor and Paz Vizsla. And that child is not a foundling, but is actually a Vizsla. Do they they give him a last name?
No, just Ragnar.
I think he's a Vizsla. And even if he isn't, so if Grogu is legitimate Mandalore, and he's a foundling, then possibly Vizsla's foundling, gets his name.
Feels that he's got a more.
And so you get this Game of Thrones. You see this Game of Thrones thing happening? Where
I totally do.
Season 4 is usurpers of the throne, led by the armor and Vizsla and Death Watch to reclaim the throne from Grogu, the upstart.
Yeah, really.
The only thing that I can't put my pin in yet is how Grogu would end up wielding the saber.
The same way that Luke did in Dark Force Rising. Just use the Force.
No, but he'd have to win it in combat. So that means that Mando would lose it, and Grogu would win it again. So that's sort of my big arc kind of Hail Mary.
Do we feel the need to address all of the ridiculous comments this week going on about how the cyborg it was the rightful heir because it got the Darksaber, and then
cyborg is clearly the heir to the Empire.
The dead heir to the Empire.
Yeah, maybe that's Thrawn's eye.
It should be blue.
The rest of him is trapped in hyperspace. It's a yellow.
It's a yellow lens.
It's true. Then it should have been green skin.
Yeah,
that's possible.
Blue skin on a yellow lens. It'd have been green.
True.
Color theory.
But But going back to season 1, when she first met him, she said, there is another way. Right?
Who said that? Oh, Katie.
Bo.
Yeah, sorry, Katie did. Yeah.
So, but at that point, she still hadn't. She was only halfway through her book, right? I mean, right now, she just found out like a whole chunk of stuff is real.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it's like, okay, if there's another way, she didn't quite know the full extent of it yet, and they can come together and find the new way.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that when they come out of the water and they land on the platform going, she's not out of breath because she had to lift him. She's out of breath because of what the hell
that
she
horror
just
movie,
saw.
There's the other thing.
If
If she doesn't buy her own rhetoric, if she doesn't buy the Mandalorian rhetoric, why not just take the sword when it's offered to her?
She doesn't though.
Part of her still knows that, blames herself. She took the sword inappropriately, and it led to the downfall of Mandalorian or of Mandalore. Like,
we don't even, and again, that goes back into that
prophecy is like, if you wield it incorrectly, you will destroy our culture, and that's what happened.
The stuff that we don't know, the dark saber, and this is revisiting ground we've tread before. The dark saber has this period of absence between the end of Star Wars Rebels and the time it shows up in Moff Gideon's hands. That whole lineage of who's who in the zoo and who has rights. Gideon's the rightful ruler of Mandalore. Is he really though? Did he win it in ritual combat? We don't know.
No, chances are he just pilfered it from Maul's stash.
He just took it.
Right.
Yeah, we don't really know.
And again, the average Mandalorian wouldn't. So it's weird that part of the lore doesn't, that's, how do I say it? That's Death Watch Mandalorian lore. Maybe maybe the saber has nothing to do with true. Maybe it's riding the mythosaur. That's the actual, and the sword, cool weapon. Keep it, Vizsla. I ride the mythosaur and wield the force.
Yeah,
perhaps,
really.
Perhaps
sword means nothing.
Right, because the Mandalore was a culture, presumably for millennia before the dark saber.
I wanted to touch on this a little bit more because both Mando and Ragnar were unable to complete the creed, and so that really made me think about this. Like, what does the Mandalorian creed even mean? Is it just a collection of words? Does it make you any more or less of a Mandalorian?
Well, like Bo said in this one, there's nothing magic about these waters.
Right.
That's why when they're on, whatever desert planet they were on,
she's wrong.
She's just pulling whatever crap water they're doing, trying to baptize them, right?
The joke, I think Eric had made a joke in one of our previous streams about, it's the people, not the place, right?
Yeah.
Is that really what we're talking about here? Being a Mandalorian is about embracing, the things that make Mandalorian people great, like Bo had alluded to, seeing Mandalorians kill each other for reasons that are too complicated to explain.
All religions with a vast tome of information are going to faction up. They're going to Life of Brian. We should worship the sandal. No, worship the foot that the sandal was on. No, it's a sign that we should cast off our shoes. Like there's always going to be right. So
different interpretation.
They're going to grab little pieces of what they think is really Mandalorian and cling to it, and despite Bo-Katan lamenting the fact that her people have been at war for so long, I really think we're headed towards another Mandalorian civil war with remnant factions of and
Eric's
Grogu will unite them.
Eric says that his theory is that Grogu will die and Mando will take on the Mandalore mantle in a heavy as the head that wears the crown.
Right, and that's when Disney sells it to
HBO.
To HBO or to Quentin Tarantino buys it from Disney. Grogu.
Lauren says that he would have had to have taken it from Bo. I believe that is in reference to Moff Gideon.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is not that. That's yes, of course, no dispute there. He would have had to
kill her. He would have,
I think there's this
defeated
idea
in combat has that connotation of I slew you and took the weapon.
Sure,
right?
But there is defeating people without killing them.
Like
certainly
did on the ship,
like Luke did to Kylo Ren from across the galaxy.
Yeah,
certainly.
Is there a ritual? Is there a ritual combat aspect here that applies?
Sabine kills Gar Saxon to take it.
That's right. So again, is it the ritual aspect of it, or is it Is it something as simple as like, I caught you in a cage, I plucked it off your belt, it's mine?
I think that's probably a legitimate way for an Imperial officer to take up the
Take
you
it
know,
from, yeah.
right?
And
Like,
that there's no way
because
the Empire
that
is going to be respectful of
the
anything.
No.
he even says it that it when he's like, he's in binders. I think he's laying on the floor. He said that it doesn't have any power itself. The weapon doesn't have any power. The story is what has the power.
Yeah.
And just by snatching it off her belt and putting it on his, he's mocking that power.
Yeah, he really has. He really has. Well, man, this one, a lot of people thought, and Eric, you had said it in your chat earlier that you thought that this was a weaker episode. Coming to the end of it now, I go back to what I said before, agree to disagree. There was a ton of exposition despite there being minimal dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it moved fairly well, to be honest.
Best episode ever.
and if we are moving towards a Mandalorian civil war,
yeah,
and the story is what has power, what is more power than someone riding that thing out of the mine?
Oh, there is that. There is that. Lauren says, great episode. I tend to agree with that. Eric, mostly retracing, felt padded. I agree with you on that. I did not necessarily feel the retracing was necessary, especially with the same shots from the same angles. It felt like we'd seen that already. So I can agree with you on that perspective. What I can't agree with is, man, did that episode move so fast? And now we've dealt with what I think most of us thought was going to be a season's worth of questing. Is now out of the way. And just like this week's episode of The Bad Batch, I feel like now the story is about to take off.
Yeah. And record
the other shoe's about to
drop. Episode length coming up to Wednesday.
Do you want to talk about that, Hank? You want to give us the runtime on that?
It's like 56 minutes, 11 seconds. I don't know what it is without credits and titles yet.
58:11.
Is it 58:11?
58:11. Yeah, a full hour. Now
that's longer than any of the Andor episodes.
It will be a little bit trimmer than that when we knock out everything, but that, by the same token, it's still going to be the longest episode yet.
So your notes were a lot less this week. We tried a different format, a lot more freeform.
How did that feel?
It felt very good. And if you look at the clock, boys, we went for 2 hours and it didn't feel like 2 hours at all.
No, I really wanted to get back to, we need to have more conversation and less recitation. So
yeah, man, this felt really, really good.
I really liked the only thing I felt we missed was the anxiety levels of R4.
Oh, that's so true.
A little bit with Pelly, and she's like, "Oh no, don't worry, he's not that jittery all the time."
I feel like I lucked out though, because when we switched up and I took the Mandalorian this week, I just lucked into an episode that had virtually no dialogue. Will it be the same in an episode where there is a lot of dialogue? I don't know.
It depends what that dialogue is. Like, is it
I mean, we're going to sit and talk about the specifics of certain things anyway.
Yeah, of course we are.
We this felt really way.
This felt
100 times over. But
for those of you who are watching live right now, what did you think, guys? Now, Doug, Lauren, Eric, you guys have been with us for a long time. You know how the show kind of runs. Did this feel different to you guys? Did you like this a little looser, a little more playful? What do you guys think? As we wait for nobody to answer.
They'll answer. They're typing. Remember, there's a bit of a delay.
Yes, there's that delay.
Little bit of a delay.
All except for the camera overheating. That's my fault because I left it on after our afternoon stream. Lauren, thank you very much. Lauren, love this format. Okay, I like that as well. Never want to be boring. No, I mean, we're here to entertain, and so hopefully that's still coming through.
No, we might pick apart stuff. I'm still gonna watch the next episode.
As much as I picked on R5, the N1 droid socket, and the cyborg, I loved every second of it. So please don't take it the wrong way that I'm somehow being, man childish about this. Of course I'm being man child about this. I love Star Wars.
When we finally get our N1 Starfighter toy, we're gonna need to get that droid in there somehow, or a pram for that matter.
It's gonna.
I have a couple of toy Jawas that we can modify it with. So
okay. Well, guys, we're going to be back on Tuesday night for our Tuesday night random fandom. I don't have a guest lined up this week. I don't know, Hank, you had said you were working on something. I don't know.
I was working on something that I ended up working all weekend. So I
fine.
might be able to pull something off short notice, but if anything else crops up, Otherwise, we'll just talk about toys, news, cool things.
I have a couple things I'm working on. I've sent myself a couple of headlines already that I want to talk about. So that's going to be, I'm actually looking forward to this one, even if it's just the three of us. Guys, I hope you will come along and join us too. It's Random Fandom on Tuesday nights. It happens at 6 o'clock live. It is a call-in show. As you can see, we have a WhatsApp icon on the screen. Depending on where you are watching, if you are watching on the YouTube channel, you will find an embedded link in our banner. It's in the banner on our YouTube channel. It is also in the header of our Facebook page. You can message us through WhatsApp or you can call in. Funny thing is, the only call-in we've had so far has been me.
Well, except for that pizza order in the first
we had
one,
the
but
pizza.
It didn't quite work out.
We had the pizza order from Rolf the dog, but that didn't really
Nice,
work out
nice,
as well as we
nice.
wanted it to.
We also have a T Public where you cannot get this sweatshirt anymore.
But you can get the season 2.
If you want to pay me
season three.
$400, I will give you a show worn shirt.
Our season 3 logo is still up. Disney has not crushed us yet. Our fan batch stuff is still up. We just sold one of those earlier, just before we went live.
And Eric is lonely as the sole patron.
That's
we
right.
would love it if you guys would join him, help him out, help Eric out by giving us money.
Listen, guys, we do appreciate all of the support. The biggest, man, everybody's got a different, a different a budget. So if the best thing you can do is to just hit the like button on this video, whether it's in the live stream right now,
and that's
or if it's in the replay, that is telling YouTube that you like what we're doing, and that will help to push our videos to other YouTube users who like this type of content. We just want to reach the widest audience we can, and we can't do that without your help. So guys, do like and subscribe and share this video with all of your friends and all the people that you're not friends with. I'll be back on we will be back on Tuesday night. This feed right here,
I'll be back down there,
will be fixed, and I will be over here again, because I won't leave the camera on for several hours in between shows.
That's where I'll be.
Oh man, if it's not one technical flub, it's another.
Ever evolving.
That's right. Listen, guys, thank you very much for joining us this week as we keep going with our double drops of both Star Wars The Bad Batch and The Mandalorian. We'll be back next week, same time, same channel. But again, Tuesday night, we'll see you then. And for Fandom Power, my name is Wes.
I'm Andy.
I'm Hank.
And we will catch you all in the next one. Bye for now, everybody.